Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to a very special part of the evening, the Hall of Fame. Since 2007, in conjunction with Rianne's, APRA have recognised those who have made a particular and significant contribution to life in Aotearoa through music. 2 bands or artists are inducted each year. The New Zealand Music Hall of Fame now boasts 11 inductees: Jordan Luck, Johnny Devlin, the Top Twins, Straight Jacket Fitz, Hirini Melbourne and Richard Nuns, Ray Columbus and the Invaders, The Formula, She Had, Dragon, and Hello Sailor. The New Zealand Hall of Fame was introduced to honour those that have paved the way significantly for musicians today. These inductees have moulded how music lovers experience everyday life, remember our history, and anticipate the future. To introduce the newest inductees to the New Zealand Music Hall of Fame is one of New Zealand's most successful male vocalists. Paving his own way in the history of Pacific reggae, hip-hop and R&B, there is no more fitting person to introduce this year's Hall of Fame inductees. Give it up for Shay Fu!
Kia ora, everybody. What's be happen? It truly is humbling to be here, to share my personal view and perspective on a band that I love, as we honour and acknowledge their rightful induction into the New Zealand Hall of Fame this evening. My name is Shay Kua Edawera Ness. I am a mokobonga, a horrified coconut, a hula haka muso, a corned beef and puha child of the 80s, born and bred in the streets of Auckland. If you are any part of this or near this ilk, this concoction of Pacifican musical gumbo, Herbs, the band, and their music was a part of you. Uncle. That's a word you're going to hear a lot from me from this speech. And that's testament to how closely knit the reggae community was back in the late 70s. There was only 2 bands. 2 bands operating at the time. My dad's band, Our Unity, shot that. And my uncle's band, there's that word again, Herbs. I remember as a youngin' cruising with my dad to my uncle Tony Fonoti's house out in Surrey Crescent to drop something off. I remember being told to go play outside with my cousin Kathy Manuela and would watch the funny smelling smoke rise out of the front lounge windows. And this one time I remember listening to them discuss the merits of us as a Pacific nation needing to have our own reggae/Rasta identity in the form of new tribal colors, red, gold, and green, and blue, to represent the Pacific Ocean. I remember cracking up. I might have been a bit too close to the funny smoke. But in hindsight, to me, the significant factor in what they were discussing was that they weren't afraid to reinvent themselves. They weren't afraid to highlight the injustices that they were faced with either. They were fearless. They were forging a new path for themselves, and we needed it back then. For real. You have to remember, this was during the time of the land marches, the Springbok tour, and Muldoonism. This was when the prospect of a kohanga reo was just wishful thinking. So when French letter dropped, it was like, thank you, God. Those were the 6 accordion notes that would forever be ingrained in my mind. The song was witty, it was scathingly poignant. Herbs was a band that was politicized and they weren't afraid. The rebels had spoken, and I loved them for that. The ball was now rolling. The albums, What's Be Happen, Light of the Pacific, and Long Ago. Amidst the myriad of lineup changes, there would be the hit singles, the aforementioned French Letter and Ja Sun, Long Ago, Nuclear Waste, and the seminal Slice of Heaven with Dave Dobbin, or as we like to call him, Yoda. Who could forget the rousing version of Air Papa at the 87 New Zealand Music Awards, when they won Best Album for Sensitive to a Smile? Who could forget that KFC ad, which at the time, even now, we held in equal regard as the Music Award? Almost. Many of the Herb's members are here this evening, not all. And no doubt we will all see shortly who they are. I take this moment to respectfully acknowledge their presence here today. Whare. On the behalf of us all here, I'd also like to extend my heartfelt thoughts and prayers to Fred Whaleoto and Brother Charlie Tumahai, who are no longer with us. We honor their work and acknowledge their legacies, and we share this with their families here today. Real quick, I'd like to thank my Uncle Dilworth Karaka for still having an active role in my life and for always looking out for me. I really appreciate that, Uncle Adil, and for letting us practice at your space. Awesome. Shout outs to Tom, aka Dragon's Kids, teacher, and Tang Nipia for mentoring me and for showing a 20-year-old Mokabunga that you can still have a career in music and raise a choice family. Shopo. So now that my 21st speech is out of the way, would you please all direct your attention to the screens above as friends of our inductees share a few words and thoughts?
Amazing grace. It was quite difficult in the early stages, the band, because besides its political messages, but also it's a brown band.
Herb's was a voice for people that felt, you know, they were being hard done by and oppressed.
All I knew was that when I heard it, I thought, this is a very, very important band. These are very important voices, voices that needed to be heard.
You know, I'd had a lot of friends that had been in the Maori show bands, etc., which is basically sort of copying European-type music. But these guys were saying something. That's what was different.
New Zealand was polarised. What was happening in New Zealand then? Whoa. Right into the family home, right into the sitting room, right there. Couldn't escape it, couldn't, ignore it.
You just got hassled, you couldn't even hear. We were parked up on the side of the road and we got asked to move out of, move on. Just having a feed of fish and chips in the car.
We were all angry and, yelling at people and placards. And it's not very successful when you do that with other people. There's a mechanism in them that turns off.
We'd had almost a decade of Ngā Tamatoa, the young warrior movement out of Auckland University. There'd been dawn raids in this country, there was Muldoonism and all that kind of thing. And here was a band that was actually saying something about the world that they came from.
Some people were afraid of what they were talking about, land rights, land issues. Here we go again type thing.
They're a political band, and we just do not have a history of political bands in this country. And they're a socio-political band too. They're talking about social issues.
I mean, Bob Marley kind of, I suppose, showed how that was possible to have a very kind of pointed lyric, but still make you want to dance and move, and Herbs took that and ran with it and made it Pacific.
There are all these reggae bands from Wellington like Dread, Beat and Blood, and they were always bleating on about wanting to go back to Africa. I mean, they hadn't kind of, channeled it enough. These guys were using reggae as a format, but because they loved it and they'd been to Bob Marley and been converted, like everyone else in the country who was there.
Dragons and demons in your head, nothing to fear.
They were good from the get-go, but they'd done their apprenticeship over in a pub called the Trident, over in the back of Onehunga. It was a real scary place. Used to hang white men outside, upside down.
were sort of in a similar situation like the Blues Brothers, where while they were singing in the corner, there was big scraps and everything and bottles flying.
And, you know, they just learned under a hail of bottles if they weren't up to scratch. You know, you learned pretty quickly. They were interesting guys. There was always an element of the Sopranos about Herbs, in a good way.
It was a realisation that we could tell these stories in a way that was maybe a little softer or something. At least the people would keep listening. And if we got good at it, then the radio stations would start to play it. And if we even got even better at it, they'd start to go on high rotate.
French Letter was on the charts in the top 10 for 11 weeks without any radio play. And people would sort of, was quite surprised how we would do it. And the way we did it was we just moved the singles from the shops that we found out were chart shops and went in, got our people to go in, buy the records, move the records and go and put them in another chart shop and go and do the same thing.
Musically, it's a really wonderful song because it takes the French accordion and it uses it back against the French in a song which is, it's anti-nuclear testing, but it's quite specifically pointed at the French, and here's using the language back at them too, Quitte la Pacifique. All of that, I think that was just such a clever song.
Herbs was real big in the islands before they were even big in Aotearoa. And we saw that when we were touring in the islands.
They were enormous over there. They were unbelievable. They were like gods to those people. I couldn't believe it.
We helped building the stage, and we built the roof out of bamboo and tarpaulins. And
it was quite a powerful thing, but it didn't pay for the cornflakes, And I think it was half them as they got older with families and kids and wives.
There was the Rasta outbreak that happened in Ruatoria, and when we were deciding to where we would launch the album, we felt it was natural and it was meant to be, because the funny thing about it was that in our album cover of Light of the Pacific, the symbol of Aotearoa was actually on the map in Gisborne.
it didn't seem like a smart thing to do from a business point of view to be releasing your album in the middle of nowhere, really. And but we decided to do it, and it started to grow.
So for us, we felt like we had to do it, we were meant to do, and we went down there to specifically bridge the gap, get all the people together.
There was a social profit, and we sold some records. Maori and Pākehā came together and felt comfortable with each other. Good place to start. I suppose we were having a conversation about what was going on in there with the Rastas and the burning and all of that, and whether or not whether the band could go down there and maybe soften it.
You know, like to be a good cause, and Herbs would always be there. And I remember being quite dismissive of that myself. And in retrospect, I was just completely wrong, because they were doing it. You know, they were as good as their word. And so there weren't too many bands that I think we could say that about. And their hearts were in exactly the right place. So yes, the politics is there right at the beginning, and through to a certain extent. And we've got to remember, you know, they did Parihaka with Tim Finn much later on in their career. So, you know, there was a lot of politics all the way through.
When I got together with Herbs, they were able to, you know, various members and some of their kind of entourage were able to, you know, fill in the gaps a bit in the whole backstory of Te Whiri, and it was just a very, it was a kind of a deep experience to be with them and talking about the song. And then I always remember their vocals, you know, when they stand around the mic and sing and they make that collective sound. It's very special.
I remember the first time I saw them play, and it was over in North Shore. And the drummer arrived without any drumsticks.
You could never get Herbs all in the same time for a photo or an interview or anything. You didn't want them all in the same place for an interview, frankly. But for a photo, it was always a pain in the arse. There was always one or two missing.
One of the guitarists didn't have enough strings to go on the guitar. And I went, oh, no.
when I split from New Zealand, I actually switched and went and started touring rugby league teams, because it was just so hard, touring bands, especially Herbs anyway.
Hi guys, we're UB40. We're here to congratulate our old mates Herbs and their induction into the New Zealand Hall of Fame.
Hey brothers, thank you for the music over the years, the journey. I love you.
It was very special for me to be invited into your world. Thank you for that. And to be able to work on a song together. You're being honoured tonight, and justifiably so.
You've had a huge effect over the people of this country. And even more than that, stretched out into the world.
Hey brothers, thank you for the inspiration through the years, and hope you have many more years of beautiful music.
Could have made a whole lot more money, maybe. That would have made everybody feel a bit better, but...
Kotahi aroha. He's been practising that for an hour and a half.
I just think they're the band, they always were. They made music that's completely timeless and said something, and they meant it, and you didn't argue with Herbs. They're the boys. Love those guys.
Maorei Dois and tēnā koutou katoa. Just like to congratulate you on your award for this evening, and just say I'm privileged and thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. Ka kite anō.
All right, Joe. Without further ado, brothers and sisters, please rise and join me in welcoming on the stage the New Zealand Hall of Fame inductees for 2012. Give it up for Herbs.
Members being inducted are Dilworth Karaka, Tony Fonoti, Phil Toms, Spencer Fusimalohi, John Berkeley, Fred Faliotto, Charles Tumahai, Morris Watane, Tama London, Jack Allen, Carl Perkins, Willie Honor, Tom Napier, Tama Renata, Gordon Joel, Grant Pukiroa, Kristen Harpy.
And, yo, two. And I'd like to ask Dil Karaka to say a few words.
Kia ora koutou, talofa lava, whakalofa atu, kia ora ana, polo vanaka. Greetings, family, friends, and fellow APRA members, brothers and sisters. You don't have to be left, you don't have to be right. A little respect and dignity to Māori Pāti. Mano mo te hake te Māori Pāti. Mano mo te hake te Māori Pāti. Woo! I have to thank everybody on that presentation. I tell you what, Hugh, I'll be coming to see you later on so we can pick up some money off you. But thank you very much, Will, Betty, Ryan, of course our lovely Rarotongan girl, Annie. Haven't seen Annie for a while, but great to see you, Anne. And D.D. Yoda, Dobbins, David. Great song for a dog. We had fun, some of the best fun we ever had. After causing a ride up here, you have to come up with the top song. So. And of course, Tim Finn, it was an education for most of us to deal with tohu and te whiti, realising that a book had come out for many, many years in New Zealand, and You couldn't buy it anywhere because they had a ban on the book. But if you were in Russia, you could buy a book called Last That Mountain. So thank you, Tim, and thank you very much for enjoying that. And a special out to Joe Walsh lived with us for 2.5 years, but we couldn't get his name on the band list to come up here tonight with us. So, but I'm sure he'll be thinking of us at this particular time. As for the guys, we got together last night after 20-odd years not seeing each other. Within a matter of a couple of bottles and a couple of shakes and a quick zip out the back, it was like yesterday. The magic, the spirit, the love, it was all there. It was reborn again. Even with our differences in that over the years, I'm sure that many bands that lived this long, it's all not a cozy road. There's a few bumps and creases on the way. But with all that, we've grown to be more acceptance of each other, acknowledge the faults and wrongs, but at the same time we move on and we carry those brothers with us. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Anthony Healy. His credentials were Director of Special Operations. I thought, shit, we're going into a covert operations here. So me thinking director, I'm thinking he's got a check for me or something. Unbeknown to me, he was showing me the offering of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And to that, Don McGlashan, Arthur Basing, acknowledge them, to thank them very much, and other board members that accepted Herbs into the Hall of Fame. But last but not least, I'd like to thank Rosie, Lauren, and of course, Patrina George. Without their help in organising these guys, we wouldn't be here. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the band Herbs. Go, yeah.
E papa wari chakune mai e tu karoi mata yo e kamate au e ine o kimaera makue ko te oi ko e tanga e makue ko te oi ko e tanga yo e kamate au e hine ho kimaera e hine ho kimaera e hine ho kimaera.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for Herbs!